So, it's been almost 2 months since I made my first video on Lucien, and it has been eventful to say the least. I had thought things would end with him announcing he would leave the internet for a while and deciding to make that break permanent. If that had been the case, I actually would have been fine moving on with my life, and I would not be making this video. It's not like I got a ton of people reaching out to me to tell me more stories about their encounters and experiences with Lucien, but unfortunately, that is not what happened. So, what did happen, you might ask? Well, Lucien returned and did a total rebrand, which, you know, is usually the sign that someone knows they've fucked up, and started crashing out. He also locked his account, but fortunately, I found a fan of his, or rather someone who was following him, who was willing to be a mole provided that they remained anonymous. So I have screenshots from his protected account. And not only that, but I also decided to do some digging into other stuff that I'd kind of overlooked, and well, let's just say that I regret not looking into his ASMR channel or other social media account sooner. Anyways, as usual, do not harass anyone I bring up. So let's get started by talking about a story I missed as well as one I can't cover. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time I published my first video on Lucien, there was actually one more ex of his that I did not know about. Someone who goes by the name Seville. You know, between Sakei, Selkie, Shoe Ivy, and, well, she wasn't a partner of his, she does still fit the pattern, Sleepy. If it wasn't for the fact that he also has an ex named Dreamment, and his current partner is named Bunny, I'd swear Lucien has a thing for partners with the letter S at the start of their name. But anyways, it actually does not matter that I didn't reach out to them since they have pretty much left the internet. Oddly enough, they did follow me back, which does suggest that they are still alive, which I would say is a positive. I did actually ask Sakei about this, and they did tell me a little bit about it. Namely, Seville used to be in a relationship with Lucien. However, because of Lucien constantly getting into drama with Dreamment, as well as IRL stuff, and the fact that the relationship was taking its toll on Seville's health, they opted to end the relationship. I haven't found anything else from any of Lucien's other exes, and Seville hasn't posted a statement. At least, not one that I've found. Now for the one story that I missed. And this is from someone who actually reached out to me. Namely, this one comes from someone who goes by Funini. Funini stuff mostly involves art-related issues. Specifically, Lucien was posting art without the consent of Funini. Now, that might not seem like such a big deal at first, since there are probably plenty of pics of fan art that are reposted on other sites without the artist knowing or consenting, but in Funini's case, well, Lucien was actually erasing the artist's watermark, and Lucien wasn't hearing any complaints from them because he had blocked Fuini. Fuini even explicitly states that they do not give Lucien consent, and they also state in their bio that if you repost their artwork, they want you to credit them, which is a very reasonable request in my opinion. Now, this one might not seem that serious, but seeing as how I like to start off my videos with the lighter stuff and then move on to the more serious stuff, it's the perfect way for me to start this video off. And also, as you can tell by how little of the video has passed, I actually don't have any other stories that I missed. So let's move on. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about how Lucien reacted to my video, because he did actually react, which is kind of a first for me. This is the thing that actually prompted me to make this follow-up, and also part of the reason why I was not able to put out a video last month, since, well, Lucien kind of went on the offensive on all fronts. See, when I published my video, Lucien opted to just step away from the internet for a while. If he had made that decision permanent, I would not be here, and I would be okay with that. But then he came back, lashing out, but also crashing out. See, his crash out is notable for bringing up the allegations against Shoe Ivy again. However, I actually feel I have the right to say that I can disregard them when Lucien is the source because of one other thing Lucien does accuse her of. Namely, Lucien accuses Riedel, or rather Shoe, of making false allegations against someone named Lazarin. He also accuses her of grooming 3 minors, which is a rather ironic accusation for him of all people to make. I will get to that later, but yes, it does mean what you think it means. But anyways, I've never heard of Lazarin, so I went to check his profile. The only mentions of Shu as Riedel that I found were semi-positive at best and neutral at worst, and none of them looked like they were in response to any allegations. I also asked Shu herself if she has accused Laz of anything, regardless of how true it was. She said no. And lastly, Lucien never provides any images as proof. If he's willing to tell a lie this blatant, why the hell should anyone believe anything else that comes out of his mouth? Plus, he does have a history of spreading false allegations. You may recall how he accused the cat boy VTuber Shaba of some rather nasty stuff. So because of this, I have decided that unless it involves someone who has actually accused her of anything, if I do bring up Shu Ivy, the allegations will not exist unless either A, it's the video where I am re-examining the allegations against her, or B, I'm covering someone who accused Shu of something. Also, and I want Bunny and Nina to pay a close attention to this part, there's also the simple fact that, none of the stuff Shu is accused of involves Lucien, so even if they were all true, that wouldn't justify or negate anything Lucien did to her. So originally I had planned on moving on to something else in this segment, but there was one other blatantly false allegation that Lucien made against Shu, which I initially overlooked. Namely, it's that she coerced him into having phone sex with her while he was in the hospital. While I can't comment on when it happened, Shu actually paints a very different picture of what actually happened. This time, I'll just let you hear about this from Shu herself.
Hey, I had to step outside just so I could send a voicemail. First off, if it's the accusations of me sexually assaulting him, I have it on record where he consented to hearing me being fucked by Tristan, my former partner, who, and this is fucked up, but Lucien said that I cucked him when he was playing with himself during it. And first off, he will lie and say that he did not do anything to me when he has did some stuff to me. Not just doxing and everything, and he probably didn't even tell Bunny either, but he literally forced me into intimacy where I had to do sexual things for him. Mason knows, and so does Tristan, because poor Tristan had to leave the room when it happened. So I have to get back to work. I hope this gives an explanation, but I did not do anything to that man, and that man is lying out of his ass to protect himself, and I am tired of his fucking lies.
You heard that right. He wanted to hear her cuck him. As tempting as it is for me to play a slightly edited version of that Commander Carl video about how Sneeko reloads, although I did find it too tempting to not make at least one Sneeko joke, which I'm showing right now, I have something better in mind in response to that info. And she has him on record as consenting to this. This is something that Lucien actually hates to admit, but according to Shu, as you just heard, he yelled at her that she made him a cuck. Now, if this had happened before the two had gotten into a relationship, when they were still just friends, and Lucien had just asked Shu, hey, next time you have sex, could I listen in? That would still be really damn weird, and I'd probably call him out anyways, but it wouldn't be as bad since it would be, voyeurism, not cuckoldry. Shu also mentions how Lucien told her to ask both Tristan and Mason, two of Shu's partners, if they would ever have sex with him. Before you ask, according to Sakai, he did publicly state that he was bisexual at one point, so I'm not outing him. Although this is somewhat ironic since Sakai also states that he openly dislikes polyamory, yet here he is trying to form his own harem. Sakai and Shu also pointed out a contradiction to me that I hadn't even noticed, although partially because I hadn't asked. See, Lucien claimed to be hospitalized when he was in relationships with both. I didn't really bring this up in the previous video because it wasn't really relevant, but the thing is, he gave both of them different reasons for why he was in the hospital. He told Shu he was in the hospital because of a severe heart condition, and she even gave a few examples of things he told her to back this claim up. Although one of these would be a confession to a second count revenge porn against Shu if he is telling the truth. On the other hand, he told Sakai that he was hospitalized because he was suicidal. Sakai does note that he's into hospitalcore, which I first thought was one of those vaporwave subgenres, but it's more just the aesthetics of hospitals and medical stuff in general, which does make me wonder why he chose to go with a demon lord as his VTuber theme instead of a doctor or a surgeon, but whatever. I bring this up because, oddly enough, while the stories were at odds, neither Shu nor Sakai mentioned hearing a heart monitor in the background. While silent heart monitors are a thing, from what I've gathered, those are only given to patients who have mild heart conditions, not severe ones. Additionally, Sakai mentioned that when he was in a VC with her, or while he said he was in the hospital, she heard someone speaking to him in English. He claimed that the hospital would have nurses from different countries to transfer, but unless he's actually a member of the JSDF, which I have not found any evidence of, and I believe that if that was the case, Shu, Sakai, Selkie, or Sleepy would have mentioned it to me, and was hospitalized at one of the US bases on Okinawa, I can't think of any hospital that would have nurses from other countries transfer there, since he was also supposedly homeless, and Japan doesn't allow for-profit hospitals, so it can't be some swanky private hospital, and I can't even think of anything about his condition that would really justify transferring nurses in, since it's not like he was being treated in some wing where they treat rare diseases. Between this and the next segment, I'd say that there is a legitimate possibility that he's lying about his entire identity online. Now I'm starting to wonder if I need one of those corkboards that conspiracy theorists use to keep track of all the different ways he's contradicted himself. But you know what? Let's get back to where I was before I got distracted on this side tangent. You know what? I think that Shu, Ivy, and Shava should do a collab now. I can see it now. Wrongfully slandered by Lucien stream with special guest appearances by Selkie and Sakai. I unironically kind of want that to happen now. He also made a separate post about Shu, which, among other things, had him threatening physical violence against her. Hey Lucien, if you're gonna fight with someone, why don't you pick on someone your own size? Yet, oddly enough, he didn't reference me at all during his crash out. I did find that a bit strange, since he also called out some of Shu's admins, although I forgot to take screenshots of that. So why didn't he call out the guy who made the video? Well, that's probably because if he did, he'd have to address my video, and he could not explain that away, considering I play a recording of him confessing to committing revenge porn in there. I know this because my best friend Briley, who also proofreads my scripts and knows that I'm about to show this, decided to troll him, and he blocked her. Now, in the aftermath of my video, one thing a few of Lucien's friends complained about was the fact that I didn't reach out to Lucien. Now, I was hesitant to do so on the grounds that, as you saw in the first video, Lucien has a habit of manipulating the conversation so that anything that makes him look bad is omitted. However, in hindsight, I will admit that I could have at least tried. I would have at least wanted to ask him what happened between him and Lumi Starbun. However, Lucien never tried to reach out to me after I made my video. He didn't send me an email to my business email, and he didn't try to DM me on Twitter. And I didn't block him. In fact, he blocked me around the time he came back from his break from the internet. If he wanted to, he could have easily sent me a DM at any point, and I would have at least let him explain some things. And before Nina or Bunny, a friend of Lucien's and his current partner, respectively, comment, I actually did try and add Nina's Discord name, but it said it was invalid when I did so. In fact, neither of you two even tried to reach out to me. Ironically, Lucien's actions actually cost him a chance to get his side of the story out there. See, a now former friend of Lucien's named Mama Wicked had offered to interview him to get his side of the story, since while she was aware of the stuff he was accused of and did believe the evidence after I showed her, publicly, she and Lucien were, at the time, on good terms. However, because Lucien didn't even read her message, she got fed up and decided to call him out instead. Another thing of note is that he tried to do a complete rebrand. Now, I do generally agree that a complete rebrand like the one Lucien did here is usually a sign you know you fucked up and there's no way you can recover. But I also believe that life is full of rules, and there are exceptions to those rules if there are special circumstances. In Lucien's case, however, this is not an exception because it's a lazy kind of rebrand. He kept using his same account. Now, if he had created an entirely new account and didn't bring up anything from his past, and also used a different font, seriously, that thing is an eyesore. I would have actually never figured out it was his account. However, because he opted to keep his same account as well as keep all of his old posts up, I was able to find his new rebrand easily. Now, to Lucien's credit, he did actually nuke his Twitch account, and I don't mean he rebranded it, he actually did delete it. But as you can see with the image I shared, he basically admits who he is. Also, while you are going to have to take my word for it since I forgot to record proof, when he did have his Twitch up, it linked to his current account. If he'd actually abandoned his old socials and started completely from scratch, I likely would have never found them. I don't think he's afraid of me, I don't have an ego like that, but I do think that he knows he can't do anything against me, so he is trying to hide from me. And as you can see, that isn't working. But that's not all. See, around this time, Dreammint finally responded to the DM I had sent her asking for comment. Now, I wasn't expecting her to thank me or anything, but I did find it odd that she didn't respond until almost a month after I posted my video, when I sent her a DM relatively early in its production. Why wait until now? She requested that I take down the part of my video that featured the censored proof that Lucien had committed revenge porn against her. She did admit it was revenge porn, but she still wanted it taken down. Now, I was a bit hesitant since the only ways I could have done so would have been to either cut that part out of the video using YouTube Studio's editor, which would have made it look very obvious, and would have hit it in something that Lucien should have had to answer for, or to re-record and re-edit the entire segment, then upload the new version and private the old version, which would have been very annoying to do since I would have had to set my old PC back up. If you don't know, I actually got a new PC right after I finished my Lucien video. Also, I was in the middle of working on my video on Draco Star Scale, so it would have pushed that back even further. Yes, Lucien's crash out is at least partially responsible for why that one took so long. If YouTube Studio had allowed me to add images and text to videos, I would have immediately done as she asked, since I could have just censored the photo with a block of solid color and added a note explaining the censorship. However, something struck me as odd about Dreammint's message, so I asked a few other people who had posted the censored photo as part of the doc that I got it from, and they had not been asked by Dreammint to take it down. And then someone told me that Dreammint and Lucien were interacting on pretty friendly terms as of late, which led me to suspect things were not as they seemed. If you've been on YouTube for long enough, and I'm gonna make some of you feel pretty old, so I do apologize in advance, you may remember how the late Total Biscuit faced something kind of similar in regards to his review of Day 1 Gary's Incident, where his very critical review of the game was targeted by a publisher who didn't want people to realize how bad the game was from his review. I bring this up because I suspect that Lucien was attempting to do something similar here. Because the VT Blacklist Twitter account confirmed that they had not received a DM from Dreammint, this confirmed my suspicions. They actually suggested that I keep that part of my video up, which I did. Once again, they are awesome and I highly recommend them, both in general and especially in place of the VTuber Blacklist Twitter account. Anyways, I bring this up because while Dreammint wasn't copyright striking my video or filing reports against it, and if she does see this, thank you, she was very likely acting on someone else's behalf, namely Lucien's. The DM from Dreammint and Lucien sharing the allegations against Shu Ivy, which I mentioned earlier, we have every reason to disregard for the immediate future since he included a blatantly fake one, lead me to believe that he was doing his best to discredit the video without actually bringing the video up. As you can see by the fact that it's still up and uncut, it failed. But that's not all. See, Lucien's friends Nina and Bunny helped Lucien try and discredit Shu. I then remembered that while I was doing research, someone told me that Lucien had likely worked with CelestialVT, a name I'd brought up before, and someone I do plan on giving a full video exposing her misdeeds on in the future. So I decided to test that theory out. I confronted Bunny, or rather an alt account Bunny was using, in DMs, and I sent the document on CelestialVT, telling her it was rich to call out Shu when she had worked with someone who had done stuff that was so much worse than what Shu had been accused of. If Bunny had said she had no idea who I was talking about, or denied that she had been working with Celeste, I would have looked like a fool. And in fact, Lucien probably could have used that screenshot as an own against me. Fortunately for me, this was Bunny's response. Look, man, I did what I needed to do. That's right, she's admitting to working with someone who self-distributed CSAM. If you want more details and are too impatient to wait for my video, I'll link the document below. And before you leave any comments, it does not show the actual CSAM uncensored, so I'm not distributing it myself. Now, I have no way of knowing how they communicated, although from what I understand, Celeste does like to use VCs as opposed to DMs to make it harder to trace her. So I decided to, let's say, take some creative liberties in recreating a small portion of how I imagined that call went.
Only guarantee my cuckoldry the safety.
So, mid-editing Andreas here. There's two more things that involve Bunny that I really can't bring up because, well, they would set this video back at least a week if I was to, but I'm gonna at least mention them here. The first is, I was able to obtain a call that Bunny was in with Lucien that proved that Bunny knew that Lucien was being absolutely abusive, and she still chose to get with him anyway. The second thing is that, well, it turns out that Bunny has skeletons of her own, so I'm going to link a document in the description that will go over an entirely different set of allegations. It mostly does not relate to Lucien, so I wouldn't have gone into detail about it anyways, but if you want to read it, it's in the description. Back to the video. So, with his crash out and the story I missed taken care of, let's go over the two new things I found. Starting out with the fact that he's a catfisher. You may recall how, in the first video, I used Lucien linking a face reveal he did on his ASMR channel as a way to prove the Osangwoo ASMR channel was in fact his. I'm gonna get back to that, but for now, let's talk about what Lucien actually looks like. See, you may recall how I mentioned that Lucien was trans. However, this is contradicted by the photo of himself that he sent Shu, which I'm showing you right now. Now, if this is a photo of him, this creates a bit of a problem since, well, as you can see, he is a very visible Adam's apple, and you cannot get those surgically. You can get them removed, but you cannot add one. You can only get one if you take HRT before surgery, and neither Shu nor Sakei mentioned him talking about taking HRT. Selkie didn't respond to my DMs, and I don't blame her since she likely wants to move on from this period of her life, which would mean he's lying about being trans. It's worth noting that in addition to likely lying about being trans, Lucien has also never mentioned what prefecture of Japan he's from, so it's entirely possible he's also lying about being Japanese. Although I'm not entirely comfortable going on the record with that one as strongly, since it's just as possible that he might keep that info to himself. The key part of that phrase being if this is a photo of him, because it's not. It's actually AI. You can tell from the hair warping and also the neck and the shirt, including the background. Why Lucien would do this is a mystery to me, since it's not like you have to show a selfie to prove that you're trans. There are plenty of trans people online who've never shown their faces. But this isn't the only place he's catfished people. We have to go over to Instagram, specifically the Miko Rebara Instagram account. He posted some photos that aren't AI, but they aren't of him either. I know this because those are actually someone else's photos. Suichiro Naito's. You may know him as the actor who played Kamen Rider Saber, which I'm going to show a clip of right now.
はいこれ。
ありがとうございます。宝物にします。友達も羨ましがると思います。みんな神山先生のファンなんです。
じゃあ今度その友達も連れてきてよ。
Now, this was from before Kamen Rider Saber started airing. It aired in 2020, whereas these photos were posted in 2017, so I have no idea how Lucien found Naito's photo, but I do know that these aren't him. As for that video he made the face reveal in, well, I'm actually not sure if that is him, since he used an app called Reface to put a face on Captain Jack Sparrow. But considering he was willing to lie about his appearance on two separate occasions, I have no reason to believe he's using his face there. I'm a bit hesitant to say with 100% certainty that he's lying about being trans, but I will say that he's not doing himself any favors by choosing to catfish other people. I'd say that it's just as likely that he's a cis man as opposed to him actually being trans. Either way, he would be using he, him pronouns, so that's what I'm opting to call him by. Now, this is from another social media site, but it isn't long enough to justify its own segment, so I'm gonna mention it here because I see no reason not to. You may recall how I mentioned that I found his IRL name because of the Church of Oh Sang-woo group on Facebook, which is also how I found that Instagram account of his. Well, I'm gonna show you one thing he posted on there that I had to censor because it does show Oh Sang-woo performing a very offensive act to the main character of Killing Stalking that might actually get this video struck if I was to show it uncensored. I'll just let that sink in for a few seconds. If you're wondering what the hair is supposed to be for, the character Oh Sang-woo is abusing is dressed like Sang-woo's mom. This is also pretty questionable since, if you don't know, Killing Stalking's main character is male, yet Oh Sang-woo is not only stated to be explicitly heterosexual, not bisexual or homosexual, but is also very homophobic. So if Lucien is willing to relate to someone like this, that raises even more questions. Namely, did he also adopt Sang-woo's homophobia behind the scenes? Let's move on to the last topic. And since we're looking at Lucien's past, we must return to that ASMR channel that I started my first video by looking at. So here we are again. See, because of Lucien's crash out and deciding to just cause more chaos in general, my associates and I started digging. It turns out that I made a mistake by not going deeper into Lucien's ASMR channel, because the stuff I found alone would have been more than enough to sink his career. I mentioned this earlier in the video, but if you need a refresher, I know this is Lucien's ASMR channel because of the stuff he posted on Twitter. Namely, he linked a face reveal. See, on his ASMR channel, Lucien uploaded Not Safe for Work ASMR. You may recall how about 6 to 7 years ago, there was this trend where a bunch of female ASMRists were uploading ASMR that was very risque, if not straight up porn. The only remaining example I could find was a channel that, strangely enough, chose to have its final video be a re-upload of Friendly Jordy's coronation video. It's not a bad choice to go out with, it's just a really weird one considering their content, but I'm getting off topic. Where was I? Oh yeah, anyways, Lucien's channel somehow didn't get hit when YouTube started to crack down on that sort of stuff.
Okay, let me reload this. Oh my god! He's deleting them! He's deleting them!
Well, you gotta fucking record that shit.
I am. Okay, so I'm gonna show the video. Okay, so this is age regression with Daddy Sangwoo. It was removed. He's deleting shit.
Now, I have no problems with people who make Not Safe for Work ASMR, as long as they aren't doing anything super shady in their ASMR videos, and they aren't making them accessible to minors. Yes, this is going exactly where you think it's going. For an example of one video of his that he uploaded that was not age restricted, we have his video on how he has a degradation kink, or his video titled Sangwoo Ex-Listener, Daddy Helps You with Little Space. Now, I've actually never heard of that term before, so I asked around. And well, to quote Urban Dictionary, it's the active regression into a childlike state, like a baby, child, or toddler. And that means mental regression, not physical regression. In fact, the majority of videos he uploaded were not age restricted at the time of making this video. If you see them age restricted afterwards, know that he has likely done that to make me look like a liar. It's not like he was uploading previews of Not Safe for Work ASMR and then having people go to a Patreon or something, which honestly is what he should have been doing. Now, it would be one thing if he had posted Safe for Work ASMRs and had a Patreon where he posted the full Not Safe for Work stuffs, which I'm honestly surprised he didn't do, since that is the kind of like the model you see some ASMRists who do both Safe for Work and Not Safe for Work stuff do. There's also the fact that many of the ASMRs he did features the listener as a character, but if you know Killing Stalking, well, let's just say that you wouldn't want to be someone who Oh Sang-woo has taken an interest in. This also led me to some, okay, I'm gonna add a bit of a disclaimer because while it's possible this might not apply, this is just in case it does, okay? I'm about to say something that should not be taken lightly. I wish that I had not found this because I do not want to give certain people a way to vilify the trans community using Lucien. In fact, this is actually kind of why I hope he's lying about being trans. In fact, there was actually a split second that I considered not making this video after I found out about it because I don't want to give certain kinds of people ammo. But Lucien forced my hand. So to Lucien, Bunny, and Nina, know that you have no one to blame but yourselves for what I'm about to say. This led me to find some very concerning comments. One of these was from someone who mentioned they were a minor. There were several other people who were minors in the comments as well. Now, if Lucien was not interacting with his comments at all, that would actually be better since he could just claim negligence. In fact, the best course of action for him would have actually been to have uploaded his videos but disabled the comments on all of them, since that would have meant that I wouldn't have been able to find what I'm about to show you. But not only did he heart the comments, he explicitly replied to the one that mentioned they were a minor. Not with a, hey, you shouldn't be watching this stuff until you're a few years older, or, oh shit, I didn't realize that minors would find this. No, he replied with this. I swear I'm not making this up, but the video in question in that this comment comes from was a Minecraft video. I know that stereotypes are bad, and there are Minecraft YouTubers who do not meet the stereotype. Campman18 is one such example that comes to mind for me. But this is a case where it unfortunately exists for a reason. And you can probably guess where this is going from that statement. KitKatBaby18 appears in the comments of some of his other videos, some of which are NSFW, ASMR, but one in particular that stands out is his shout out to my adopted kid video. Now, Lucien did not adopt an actual child. Rather, his, quote, adopted kid is KitKatBaby18, who we previously established was a minor. Now, I know this because while the video lists the channel as Nikki Nighttime, KitKatBaby18's comment only really makes sense if they used to go by that name. And also, it's worth noting that the comment was also posted 3 years ago, which is the same time that the comment where KitKatBaby18 explicitly said they were a minor was posted. Now, it is worth noting that Lucien mentions to go watch the video on the channel, but when I went to go look at KitKatBaby18's channel, there were no videos, so it was likely deleted. Regardless, seeing as how Lucien was 30 at the time this happened, I can't think of any way to interpret this other than him grooming KitKatBaby18. But that's not all. But this was just the surface. So I kept on digging, and well, I can confidently say Lucien is a groomer. Recall how I brought up how Lucien did not age restrict any of his videos. And if you watched the first video, you may recall how I mentioned he knew someone was a pedophile but opted only to cut ties with them after they stopped being useful to him. Well, that's not all, because it turns out that Lucien wasn't much better than Kayla. An example of this can be seen in this post on the community page of his O Sangwoo ASMR page, which I would like to remind you all was not age restricted. It was censored like this, but still. There's also some of the comments which, as you'll notice, Lucien was hearting, including this one in particular. Also, you may remember Kayla. I'll play the clip again just because it's relevant.
Oh, well, pardon me. Pardon me. Where were you at when I needed somebody? No, you were too busy trying to, trigger warning, send me photos of you putting a cord around your neck. Okay, showing me that you have bruises around your neck and you didn't know how to explain it to your, co-workers. What about that shit, What about that? Or how you told me that you had a 15-year-old boyfriend who dumped you and then you felt depressed because he didn't love you. But guess what? I was always there to listen to you when you needed it. I was there to comfort you when you needed it, but that was never enough. It was never enough. Nothing was ever enough. Because I wasn't doting on you 24/7, but I was doting on my friend Dreamy and giving her attention that you desired. She became upset with me and became irate. So then she would take it out on the vent server. And she needs to quit fucking trying to act like she's so I'm holier than thou. She has a fucking NSFW RP room where underage kids fuck each other. In roleplay form. Okay? I don't care if your characters are adults. You guys are underage. So you know what? I don't have nothing like that on my server. I have nothing but, like, you know...
Well, the thing is, Lucien knew about this because he was in the same Discord server as Kayla. So it's entirely possible he was actually attempting to solicit some of the minors himself. Admittedly, I can't say any more than it's possible without actually going in the server, and I don't have a link, but still. In fact, I count at least 4 minors who were in his comments. And I was also able to find one case where a minor exposed a small child to one of his videos. But that's not all. You may remember how I mentioned how DreamMint accused him of grooming in the first video, but I couldn't really comment on it based on the fact that DreamMint had deleted her statement and no one had archived it. Well, in light of the recent information that I've learned, I'd say that those should be re-examined if possible, since, well, according to the thread, Lucien and DreamMint met when she was 17 and they started dating when she turned 20. However, in a video titled In Plain Sight that Lucien uploaded to his Oh Sang-woo account, you can clearly see her in a Discord server he was running at the time. I don't know if it's still up, and it probably isn't, since I doubt he would have kept it. That she's in there. He does refer to her as a friend, and it's very clear that it's a not safe for work server. Considering what kind of content he was making at this time, and also, well, everything else, yeah, I'm starting to think that people should have listened to DreamMint. I don't blame anyone who did side with Lucien at the time, since someone like me wasn't there to put all the pieces together. And also, it is natural to not want to think the worst of people you consider a friend. But still, I would say that DreamMint did not get a fair shake at the time. So, to Bunny and Nina, I don't think I need to explain why you have no right to accuse Shu of anything, considering the man you are dating and supporting, respectively. As for Lucien, I sure hope that crash out you did to try and discredit Shu was worth me deciding to look into you further and finding all the stuff I showed about you just now. But this has gone on for far too long, and quite frankly, I am ready to move on with my life. So let's wrap this up, shall we? Lucien, if you're watching this, and I get the feeling that you are, just leave the internet and never come back. Get help and never come back to VTubing. You are a danger to those around you, and quite frankly, I do not believe you will ever change for the better. If you do decide to try and attack any of your victims once again, I will actually go out of my way to get someone outside of the VTuber sphere to cover your misdeeds. Stand down. As for Bunny and Nina, you opted to work with one of the worst people ever to be a VTuber, all to slander someone. You should be ashamed of yourselves, and quite frankly, I do not regret not hearing out Lucien because of what you did. Anyways, I hope this is the last time I have to speak about Lucien. My next video is going to be taking a break from VTubing related stuff, and is just gonna be me making fun of someone who... I'm starting to wonder if the amount of time I spent on my Lucien video is making me hear things. Anyways, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. If you want to help this channel out, hitting the subscribe button is nice if you haven't already. And also so is liking the video. But anyways, I'm Andreas Rebel, and I'll see you on my next assignment. Later.